Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. And I do want to start with what, as I said, was the game of the year in the SEC, Alabama-Arkansas. It was second place versus first place. It had the feel of a top 25, or not only a top 25 matchup, but really like a Sweet 16 type matchup. And I will be honest right off the top. It was a little bit disappointing the way that the refs hijacked this game. And any fan listening, any SEC fan, because we have a lot of them from all over the conference, Tennessee fans, Kentucky fans, Georgia fans, whatever, I think you know what I'm talking about. But it was a little bit of a disappointing effort from the SEC refs. 50 total fouls called in the game, 51 total free throws, and it hijacked in many ways what was a really, really, really fun game and a really, really, really fun matchup. With that said, I don't think it altered or changed the matchup. Arkansas was simply the better team. Arkansas came out more prepared, more locked in, more focused, and I think we got to start talking about both these teams now, but we've been high on Alabama all year. I was a little bit ahead of the curve on them, and now it is officially time to start talking about Arkansas as a team that, they're going to be in the top 15 if they win this weekend, and we're looking at them as a 5, 6, 7 seed. You mean to tell me that they, as a 5, 6, 7 seed, can't pull an upset in round 2 and get to the Sweet 16 or beyond? Because I sure think they can. But let's start with the game on Wednesday night. And really what stood out to me and what has stood out to me about Arkansas all year is one thing. The defense is catching up with the offense. So this was a team, for people who have not watched them night in and night out, that has been very dynamic offensively. I mean, you go back to the first SEC game of the season, they put up 97 points at Auburn, struggled without Justin Smith, and they've been playing really well, which we'll get into in a minute. But when they have been fully healthy, they have not struggled to score the basketball. You just look at some of their results. 86 points at Missouri in a win, 75 points against Florida the other day. But what has really stood out to me over the last couple games is that the defense is now catching up to the offense. You guys know I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a metrics guy. I'm not an analytics guy. I like analytics. I don't let them determine all of my opinions. But just watching Arkansas, there appears to be a renewed sense of urgency on the defensive end. And I think it showed both in the victory over Florida last week and then, more importantly, against Alabama on Wednesday night. Alabama held to 37% shooting from the field, 33% shooting from three. Now, they still did hit 11 threes, but when you look at Alabama on the season, this is a team that statistically is one of the best three-point shooting teams in college basketball, 36-37%. Arkansas holds them below their average. Arkansas holds them as a team to 66 points, and really that's where it starts for me with Arkansas, is I think that I was always excited about this team's offensive potential, but it's defensively where they have taken the next step and where they are evolving as a basketball program and a basketball team this year. It's kind of crazy. I think I just mentioned it, but Eric Musselman, dating back to his days at Nevada, was known as a coach whose teams always thrived on the defensive end. So it has been a little bit weird watching this team be very good offensively and have to adjust defensively. But I want to go beyond the game, and you guys know me. I never try to do small picture stuff, right? I never want to be, well, this guy scored 19 points and 11 rebounds, and the ball screen defense was great. Like, that's not what I do. I'll give you a trend. I'll give you a stat, something that's important like the defense, but I want to go big picture here, existential, deep dive. And yes, for listeners of the show, that's the second time I've used the word existential because I used it with Sean Farnham on Wednesday's show. But anyway, I bring it up because what I want to say about Arkansas is a couple things. First, this is a team that you now officially need to watch out for come NCAA tournament time. They are playing as well as anybody in college basketball. They have now won 8 of their last 9 games. Their only loss, ironically, against Oklahoma State. We're going to have Oklahoma State's coach on this show here momentarily. But, they've won 8 of 9. They've won 8 straight SEC games. They've beaten tournament caliber teams, Alabama, Florida. They beat Missouri on the road. And this is a team that has slowly started to build confidence over the course of the season. Now, I also want to give myself a little bit of credit here because I did say that during their losing streak, when they started 2-4 in SEC play, I said, well, wait a second now. Their best interior player, Justin Smith, has not played, has not been healthy, came back at the end of that losing streak. And I said, let's see what Arkansas can do when they hit the bottom half of the league on the schedule and when they have a full roster. They opened with a brutal schedule that included at LSU, at Alabama, and at Tennessee early in the season. And when you don't have your best interior player, you're not going to be surprised when that team struggles. And so you fast forward, they've been healthy, and they're on a roll. I really do think, I was talking to some people around the program, I really do think that win at Rupp Arena, which for the Kentucky fans listening, I know is going to make you pull your hair out, but I really do think that win at Rupp Arena was the game changer for them, and this is actually a credit and a respect to Kentucky, because I think anytime anyone wins at Rupp Arena, it gives you confidence as a program that you're trending in the right direction, even if it is a Kentucky team that is not as good as it has been traditionally in the past. I think Alabama feels a lot of the same way of they got their credibility nationally when they actually went to Rupp and beat Kentucky, even if they weren't even if Kentucky isn't as good as normal, and I think Arkansas feels the same way. And so it's been kind of cool to watch Arkansas continue to build off of that win, going from losing games early in the season to beating bad teams to dominating bad teams to then beating good teams at Kentucky, who I think is playing well for the record, at Missouri, build that momentum, which leads to a win like the Alabama win on Wednesday. More importantly, and this is really big picture, I think that this game in many ways was a preview of what the future of SEC basketball is going to look like. And what do I mean by that? Well, I think, look, Kentucky's always going to be in the mix at the top of the SEC. I still believe in Rick Barnes in Tennessee, even though it has been a frustrating year for the Vols. The Vols actually had another frustrating near loss on Wednesday. They did beat Vandy, but it was another ugly game. But what I think when you talk about the present and the future of this conference, I think it comes down to the two coaches and the two programs that we saw. Kentucky's always going to be there. Tennessee is going to be there. Auburn with Bruce Pearl, if they can get through sanctions, is going to be there. LSU, if Will Wade stays, is going to be there. But you talk about two programs on the rise, two programs with second-year head coaches. This ain't your grandpa's college basketball where you need 4 years, you need to bring in your own players. No, these are two young, dynamic coaches that could be there for the foreseeable future and have these programs trending in the right direction. Starting with Arkansas. Listen, you guys know how I feel about Eric Musselman. I've been talking about him on this podcast since his days at Nevada. I've had him on this podcast since his days at Nevada. And what stands out to me is essentially Wednesday night confirmed what I told you was going to happen. And I hate to brag. You know it's not my style. You know it's not what I'm about. But here's the bottom line. The day that Eric Musselman was hired, I told you point blank, I called it a home run hire. I went back. I did a Periscope the day he was hired, and I legitimately called it a home run hire because I truly believed it was a home run hire. And everything that I said that day has largely come true. And to take it a step further, Coach Muss has even done some things that I did not anticipate him doing as well, which includes recruiting at an elite level from the high school ranks. We knew he could get transfers, but get it from the high school ranks. But the reason I bring up, I'm not saying this to pat myself on the back, but why I'm bringing it up is very simply this. I've been around college basketball a long time. I've seen a lot of programs up close and in person, and this is no disrespect to anybody else in college basketball. I have been in John Calipari practices that are really, really, really intense. I've been in practices at Indiana, at UCLA, at USC, at whatever. But what I will tell you is I have never been around a staff that is more locked in and dialed in than Eric Musselman's staff when I spent some time with them at Nevada. Not to say other staffs aren't great. Not to say Nate Oates and Rick Barnes and Chris Beard and Tony Bennett and Leonard Hamilton aren't great coaches. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I am saying is when I spent time at Nevada, I saw how that team prepares for games. They were actually getting ready for their season opener a few days later when I was there. I saw the way they do game planning, scouting reports, all that kind of stuff. And I have never been around a program that is that in-depth, that in detail with everything that will go on in a game. And I think it showed on on Wednesday night. Jimmy Dykes kept saying, they're icing the ball screens. They're doing this. They're doing that. I'll leave the fancy terminology to Jimmy Dykes, who's a stud, who I'm trying to get on this podcast, by the way. But Jimmy Dykes is a stud. But I have never been around a coach and a coaching staff that is more detail-oriented, more focused, and it's probably shouldn't be a surprise considering that he took Nevada from the bottom of the Mountain West to conference champion within 2 years and 3 straight NCAA tournaments before he left for Arkansas. And when he got hired at Arkansas, I told you he was going to do the same thing. And when I look at what he has done, what that coaching staff has done, you look at a guy that is an elite recruiter, a guy that is a relentless recruiter, a guy that was ahead of schedule in terms of the transfer portal. I mean, he was recruiting transfers before it was cool to recruit transfers. As a matter of fact, I remember talking with one of his staff members about why he recruited from the transfer portal, and I left the conversation wondering, why don't more teams do this? You get an older player, more experienced, college-ready, college body, college weight program away from home. You don't spend 3 years flying across country to watch him play AAU. I remember thinking at the time, I wonder why more programs don't do this. And now you look around college basketball, everybody's recruiting transfers. And so I bring all this up to say that this is what I expected. I expected top 25s. I expected a team that could compete for SEC championships in the regular season. I expected a coach that was going to recruit the transfer market hard. Well, guess what? Look at Wednesday night's game, and look at the team that Arkansas put on the floor. 3 of the 5 starters were transfers from other schools. Connor Vanover from Cal, Justin Smith, as I mentioned, from Indiana, Jalen Tate from Northern Kentucky. On top of that, what I will give Coach Muss credit for was I did not know if he could recruit high school players at an elite level. Well, you know who some of the most impactful players have been for Arkansas this year? How about Moses Moody, who led the game with 24 points? Freshman, one and done, star from the state of Arkansas. Devo Davis. By the way, you can't jump on the Devo Davis bandwagon because I created the Devo Davis bandwagon. I got a list in the velvet rope. You can't get behind it without my approval. He's a starter for this team, and Jalen Williams had some big minutes on whatever it was, Wednesday night for this Arkansas Razorbacks team. And so when I look at this Arkansas deal, I'm telling you, man, this is not going to slow down. Now, are there going to be peaks and valleys? Are they going to be at this level every single year? I don't really know because, listen, sometimes with transfers it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the high school kids aren't going to be as readily available. As Jimmy Dykes said during the broadcast, which I thought was an incredible line, he said, you go on a bad date with a bad guy or girl, it'll cost you $50 and some ice cream. You get the wrong transfer in your program, it could cost you your entire season. But I bring that up to say that there's no guarantee that this thing works out as well every single year, that by the end of February, Arkansas is in the top 15. But I think they're going to absolutely compete for NCAA tournaments. I said when Coach Muss was hired, I thought Sweet 16s by year 2, year 3, and that is the way it's trending. I mean, again, you look at this team, you look at this program, and I see no reason to think that this is a team that if they get in as, say, a 6 seed, 5 seed, whatever it is, if they're a 6 seed and they're in the same region as, say, Virginia as a 3 seed, you mean to tell me they can't beat Virginia? You mean to tell me that if they're, say, a 5 seed and the 4 seed in their bracket is Texas Tech or somebody, that they can't beat Texas Tech or that they can't beat Texas? Give me a break. Of course they can. So that's the deal on